Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. This is Richard Doc Owen. I am joined in the Hilltop Studios by...
I'm a surefire.
And...
Uncle Bocce.
Full house again tonight. It's all good, folks. We got a great show for you. I think we have enough to talk about to carry us for 55 minutes, but we'll do our best. So... to try to keep you from having any dead air time. And as you know, we no longer do on-air advertisements. So it is 55 minutes of delivering truth to youth. And we hope you enjoy it. We are all over the social media. We are primarily on Facebook and Twitter, of course. We're trying to crank up our Instagram and Pinterest and yada, yada. But, you know, once you're dedicated to a couple of them, it's kind of all you can handle. We are out there as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. So look us up on Facebook, give us a like or a follow, and certainly follow us on Twitter because that's the best way to be informed of activities and actions that have to do with the show. We have a blog that is getting some more activity. I'm beginning to post on it. Uncle Bocce does a good job of putting posts out there. And the third member of our team, if you're not aware, is a full-time student in a PhD program. So she writes for a living and doesn't have much time to do blog posts, nor is what she's studying really relevant to current day activities in terms of blog posting. We have free apps for both the iPhone and the Android. You may download them. That'll give you access to all of our archived shows, which once they are archived, they are known as podcasts. Play on demand casting is what the pod stands for. So you can listen to it in its entirety, or you can listen to it in 10 and 15-minute chunks and eventually get caught up on some of the background if you wish. We always, and by the way, the blog is docowenshow.com. And guess how you find the apps? Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. Nothing tricky about this, nothing hidden. We are totally transparent. All right. We always start our show in a very traditional manner. Ms. Surefire gives us a quote of inspiration. Uncle Bocce kind of gives us a shot at this day in history. And then I round out that tradition with a leadership quote or two, and then we'll dive into what the show is all about. Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from PocketFuel.com. That's PKTFuel.com. And tonight's quote comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 14. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. The road less traveled and the narrow gate both describe a place of decision. How are we going to live? What way will we walk? And sometimes the most obvious and safe way isn't always the one we should take.
Ah,
Very good.
take the road least traveled, right?
That's right.
You know what Yogi Berra said about that quotation?
Mm-mm.
When you come to a fork in the road,
Take it.
take it.
Except when you're snowshoeing.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Be careful.
That's right.
Uncle Bocce, what happened?
Yeah, I got two things tonight. Not too exciting, but there are two things.
Does Uncle Bocce sound better?
Yeah.
I think I can hear the audience applause.
Good.
Uncle Bocce has a new microphone.
Yeah, I got a new microphone and a headset.
And headsets. He's
Wow,
he's fully strapped in.
Yeah, I'm really a talk show host here, or whatever.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, so this day in 1932, the first elected female senator was voted for, and
I'm sorry, I got you a mic now.
Well, hey, yeah,
Hey,
well,
what year
that was
was it?
1932.
Wow. Okay.
You know,
That wasn't that long ago, relatively speaking.
And then, more importantly, not more importantly than women, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. 1954, John Foster Dulles announced our new foreign policy with regard to military, and it was called massive retaliation.
Oh.
Yeah, he felt that we needed to be ready to attack massively rather than having our military spread out in all the world and all countries and stuff like that. So that's what happened today.
Strike hard, strike fast, strike hard. Was that during?
That was Eisenhower.
Yeah, but when was the Korean conflict?
It was in the 50s.
It was in the 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the early 50s. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. Just making sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Our leadership quote tonight is from our friends at Crowned Grace International. It's from D. Jakes. Tom David Jakes.
Yes.
You know who that is?
Yes, I do.
Tell the audience, please.
He has a show.
Really?
Yes. And I believe he's a godly man.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is your passion that empowers you to be able to do that thing you were created to do.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
AKA, follow your passion.
That's
right.
right.
And you'll be fine.
You'll be a success.
Okay. Tonight we've got a very interesting interview that I really hope you will hang around for. If you are aware of Edward Snowden and his, putting out in the open, being a whistleblower on the NSA, and all the furor that raised about the amount of data that the federal government is collecting relative to our cellular phones, you'll be absolutely flabbergasted at what Mr. Rex Lee has to tell you about the data being collected on your mobile device. He's a telecommunication expert with over 30 years in the mobile telecommunications industry. He's a software writer. He knows the insides and the outsides of telephones. And we had a very, very interesting conversation with him earlier in the week that we're going to play back for you. I really, really think that you'll enjoy it. It was an eye-opener for me, and I like to think that I knew a lot about the subject when, in fact, I knew very little, and that's the whole point. Uncle Bocce?
Yes, sir.
Considering today's events and all of the rumors about what's leading up to January the 20th, which is why we named the show DJT Day -8.
Yeah.
DJT being Donald J. Trump, and it's a play on D-Day. Okay, so we got DJT Day coming up on the 20th. So today is DJT Day -8.
There we go.
And so the next 7 days I refer to as the 7 days of Christmas because we're going to get to unwrap a new gift every day between now and Inauguration Day. And there's a lot of, let's be polite and say pushback or questioning of our president-elect, mostly by the team that lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
They're not very good losers. I mean, we supposedly were taught as young people how to lose gracefully. Mm-hmm. And sooner or later, you need to learn how to do that because you can't win them all. So, given that background, Uncle Bocce is going to give us some historical perspective on rebellion. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Was that an appropriate setup
that
for
is,
you?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
good
perfect.
segue there.
All right, bud. Take it
Okay.
away. You're on.
All right,
You're hot. Your mic's hot. It's working.
there we go. Okay, did you know that the American colonies had known violent rebellion long before the Revolutionary War?
No.
Do you know that they did?
No.
No. Okay. Well, they did. In fact, each of the original 13 colonies had experienced violent uprisings. We're going to go through a few.
Really?
So, Remember now, we've talked about...
Over what? Are you going to tell us over
Yeah,
what?
I'm going to tell you over
Okay.
what. And remember, the series that we've been doing now, we looked at some of the philosophical background of what an American is.
Yeah.
We've looked at some of the spiritual foundations. Last week we talked about smuggling and how that prepared us.
Yep.
Now we're going to look at rebellion and see how that prepared us.
Okay.
Okay? Americans show themselves more than willing to take up arms to defend a cause that is dear to them, like liberty and freedom and things like that, okay? The property rights. Okay? Now, this tradition of rebellion, it characterized the American spirit throughout its early history. So there was a spirit that was abounding in America. One of the rebellions that happened is called Bacon's Rebellion. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with pigs.
Okay.
One of the earliest large-scale insurrections was Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, led by a man named Nathaniel Bacon. He led a group of disgruntled citizens from the western part of Virginia eastward in search of justice. Now remember, at the time, Virginia as a colony was much bigger than Virginia the state. They had this whole western... So what was happening was that these people who lived in the western part of the state, which is really the frontier, they were not very happy about the way that Governor Berkeley, which was a British governor, had done nothing to protect them from Indian raids and all that kind of thing. They felt that and they didn't have access to the wealth that was mostly on the seaboard. So these frontier Virginians, they felt excluded from all of that, from the riches and all of that. Okay, over 1,000 of Bacon's followers, they entered Jamestown. You remember Jamestown? We talked about it. We've talked about Bacon's Rebellion before, too. They just burned the capital city down. They burned it down. Governor Berkeley fled until reinforcements could be organized, and the rebels pillaged and plundered the countryside until Berkeley's forces crushed them. Over 20 rebels were hanged, but fear of further rebellion was struck into the hearts of the members of the wealthy Virginia planting class. Okay, so you can see that tension. Okay, now we talk about some regulators and traders, or traders. Regulators, not what we think of regulators today, the administrative state, but we'll get into that. Similar uprisings took place all along the colonial backwoods. In South Carolina, a rebellion broke out as a result of the regulator movement. There was anarchy in South Carolina frontier after the 7 Years' War. From 1765 to 1767, outlaws roamed the landscape, holding local farmers at their mercy. A band of vigilantes, known as regulators, they took the law into their own hands and they pushed the outlaws away. The regulators then turned their wrath on local hunters who were raising a force to fight back. Near Civil War conditions were prevalent until the government, they finally agreed to institute a circuit court judicial system.
Now, what year was this?
This is 1765 and 1767.
Okay.
In that area.
Okay.
And North Carolina had very similar things happening in it as far as rebellion.
Okay.
Land riots took place in many colonies, but in New York, they were particularly violent. Okay? Tenants of the wealthy land aristocrats demanded relief from the high rents imposed on them. Can you imagine way back then what did it cost? A nickel for a room or something?
But now these aristocrats were colonists. They weren't.
Yeah, they were
British.
colonists.
They were part of us, right?
They were, well, yes, but they were British subjects still.
Oh well, they all were.
Yeah,
But I'm saying is the rebellion was internal. It was local, is what I'm saying.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I was just making sure I understood.
Okay. Now, when the courts ruled in favor of the land barons in 1766, the angry farmers took up arms.
Oy.
They weren't happy with that. The governor had to bring in redcoats to quell the disturbance. Not all rebellion took the form of violence, however. James Otis spoke against the British as early as 1761 in his speech against the writs of assistance, council chamber at Boston's Old State House. Now, to give you an explanation of what a writ of assistance is, it is a written order issued by the court instructing a law enforcement official, such as sheriff or a tax collector, to perform certain tasks. Okay, now in Pennsylvania, a group of Scots-Irish settlers called the Paxton Boys marched on Philadelphia, believe that, marched on Philadelphia in 1764 to protest the Quakers' attitudes and friendliness to the American Indians. There was a reason why they did that.
The Paxton Boys were
To
always
the Native Americans.
They were trouble to their mama from day one.
Well, yeah, the Paxtons, they lived in Pennsylvania's hinterland. Remember Virginia's hinterland?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania's hinterland?
Yeah, they lived out in the woods.
They wanted two things. They wanted the land that belonged to the Native Americans, and they wanted protection from raids on their homes. Okay? So a delegation led by none other than Benjamin Franklin.
Really?
Yep, here he comes. Met with the Paxton gang to hear their grievances.
Oh, okay.
What a good man. Order was restored, however, but just barely before the Paxton brothers would have attacked Philadelphia. American colonists, therefore, had proven themselves experienced rebels.
Okay.
Excuse me. And that is just about, that is what I have for tonight.
Okay.
So we see, well, let me just finish. I have a couple minutes. Here's a couple other things. When they felt their rights were jeopardized, they seemed willing to take up arms. These are the Americans, okay,
Right.
we're talking about. Economic exploitation bothered them. Lack of political representation bothered them. Unfair taxation were among the causes that led to these clashes.
Okay.
So reverberations from the rebellions reached England. Parliament and the monarchy heard the colonial message loud and clear. The emerging American would be ready to fight for justice if necessary for independence. If necessary, even independence.
Okay.
So you see how all of this is building
up.
together and
Yeah.
connecting the dots, and
They could see it
we're getting
happening.
ourselves ready.
Right.
So next week we're going to talk about the American. We're going to delve into
What was an American?
yeah,
Is that what you're
right?
saying?
What is an American?
Okay.
Okay. Before we move on to other things, so be looking forward. That's going to be a great discussion. Last week I announced it was going to be this week, but I was a step ahead of myself, so I apologize.
Quite all right.
Okay. You can reach me, Uncle Bocci, UNCLEBACI, at DocOwenShow.com. Thank you, folks, for listening.
Thanks, Bocci. Good job.
Thanks,
Good
Uncle
job.
Bocci.
So to summarize, in general, we were a rowdy bunch, and we were susceptible to put up a fight for on principle, as we would say in today's world.
Yeah.
And there were. Now, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
At the same time this was going on, and I forget you, I'm sure you've taught us, did we have courts of law? Did we have other ways for these folks to settle their grievances?
Not on a total national basis for sure.
That's what.
There was.
This was really about the best way that they had to do it.
You're right.
I mean, they could go to the town square. They could.
Right.
They could speak up. They could speak out.
Yeah, there was no. There wasn't very much that was really organized to their benefit.
We couldn't sue the SOB.
Yeah.
We just have to take him to the court of guns or take him out behind the barn and whip him up.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So that gives you one reason for an impetus to establish the rule of law in the United States.
There you go.
And
Absolutely.
to codify in a Bill of Rights to set up some sort of a framework that kept these rebellions to a minimum. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I would say that we are really in that stage even now. In a sense of rebellion, not armed rebellion.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
But there's a loud and proud group out there.
Yeah.
That it just wouldn't take much.
That's right.
And there's those of us who shall we say, straddle those two camps of dealing with the authorities, dealing with the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, the Tea Party, the Libertarians, dealing with the organized groups, but we're also aware, because of what we do here, and that is do some research and some homework. We read a lot in alternate media. We listen to alternate media podcasts, so we know that there is a pretty sizable group of people very similar to these rebellions. Mm-hmm. These rebels that broke out. In other words, we've got our current generation Paxton brothers just sitting out there watching and waiting for somebody to cross the line. Well, but the Bundy Ranch thing. I mean,
exactly.
We've already had that level of confrontation going on. Mm-hmm. It's minimal compared to what it used to be, but maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
maybe we just don't know about it, or it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean, but I'm just trying to draw a parallel here. Yeah. A parallel here between today and then. Yeah. Even smuggling. Yeah. I mean, that's going on today, only a little bit different way.
Yeah, go down to the Rio Grande River.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that kind of smuggling, but smuggling to get around the strict laws and the regulations in this country. They're going around. So, history repeats itself. And don't let anybody tell you it doesn't. You learn from history.
Yeah, Yogi had something to say about that. I've forgotten exactly what it was. Okay. All right. Thanks again, man. It always sparks a bit of a conversation, and that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
All right, to make sure that we save some time, this is a pretty lengthy interview with Mr. Rex Lee. We're now going to switch from a historical perspective to a current day perspective. And if you thought you knew how much data that they are sneaking off of your mobile phone, you were wrong. Listen to this conversation, please. Hope you enjoy it. We'll be back after it's over. We are about to have a conversation, and you are about to be completely immersed in the world of, I guess I'll just use the name of the website, which is termsmayapply.com. And a fellow by the name of Mr. Rex Lee has been generous enough to give us some of his time and talk to us about that exact fact. Terms may apply as it relates to the telecommunications industry, primarily mobile phones. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Lee?
Yes. Terms may apply more accurately comes from the terms and conditions that people are agreeing to that are connected to their smartphones and or other connected products.
Okay. So, in other words, there are things built into our mobile devices that we are agreeing to those terms and conditions, and unless we read thousands of pages of legal text, we don't know what those are. We don't have any way of tracking them down.
That is correct.
Okay.
More accurately, the terms may apply really came from a research and documentation I did on a smartphone. I initially did research, documentation, and analysis on a Samsung Galaxy Note phone I was using in conjunction with consulting work I did for a defense contractor.
Okay.
I have a background in cellular software development, and I was curious about what most people have never read are app permissions that are hidden inside of their cell phones.
Okay.
And the app permissions are tied to the terms of use, which is your terms and conditions for the cell phone. And in a nutshell, when people click on I agree, they have no idea that they're also agreeing to these app permissions. And the app permissions enable third parties such as Google, Apple, Microsoft, and their business partners, Facebook, Baidu, and other companies to be able to access personal and professional information from your smartphone. And that's basically what app permissions are and how they tie back into your terms and conditions.
So it's a rather convoluted way. In other words, we don't really need the NSA nor Edward Snowden to tell us that we're being, in old traditional terms, we're being tapped. We're being wiretapped. It's going on whether we like it or well. We've agreed to it. Is really your point? Is that we've given them our permission when we sign up with the vendor.
Yes, when you click on I agree.
Yep.
And if you've ever wondered what that means, in particular, I'll use the Samsung Galaxy Note smartphone for as an example.
Because you're most familiar, right?
Yes, sir. You go to T-Mobile, you buy this phone. They have you click on a what's called a click wrap agreement within the store, which is T-Mobile's terms and conditions.
Okay.
What people don't realize, even if you read the T-Mobile terms and conditions, what people don't realize is that when they agree to the telecommunication products and services terms and conditions, they're also agreeing to the OS developer terms and conditions, which in the case of a Samsung phone would be Google, and they're also agreeing to the terms of use from each of the individual application developers who are responsible for developing the pre-installed applications that come on your phone. These are the applications you cannot uninstall, nor in many cases can control or disable.
Like contacts, for instance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, the dirty secret about these apps is they come with a set of app permissions.
Yeah.
And each one of those app permissions enables each one of those app developers access to your contacts, your calendar data, your text messages, your email attachments, and other highly confidential information such as your ID.
Well, we like to think it's highly confidential anyway, right?
No, actually, look, the bottom line is there's multiple companies that are monitoring, tracking, and data mining all smartphone users, including children under 18.
Wow.
And they're collecting this. Well, the app developers like Google say this is what people want, and they'll tell you that they need all of that pertinent information to provide what are called predictive analytics,
yes, sir.
Which is predictive technology, and or artificial intelligence, which they say enhances the user's experience, but in reality, about 100% of all activity conducted on your smartphone is collected by these companies, and they're using the information for financial gain at the same time.
Right. Well, so now that you've made the case, which I never questioned was necessary, but it is informative for the audience. Have you? what do we do about it? I mean, do we have any choices? We are all, we are mobile phone, myself included, completely mobile device dependent almost. Not, it's no longer a luxury. What is there a way? How is there a way to get around it, or have you gotten to that point in your research yet?
No, and actually, what I did, I've been in wireless communications for over 30 years.
Yes, sir. I know. Yeah.
I helped launch a very controversial software company in 2008 called Houdini Soft. And what Houdini Soft did, we wrote an algorithm that would unlock over 600 makes and models of cell phones, and it allowed consumers to basically unlock their CDMA phones and pick whatever carrier they wanted to choose.
Uh-huh.
And so I
without having to go back to the carrier to ask their permission to unlock it or ask them to unlock it.
Exactly,
right.
And we made the news. It spawned a lawsuit between one of our customers was Metro PCS, and it spawned a lawsuit between Virgin Mobility and Metro PCS. Consequently, Apple and AT&T came after us, and they did not like our software. They did not want to give the consumer the right to choose because they want to keep all this proprietary. And how that's relevant to terms may apply and what's going on today is basically what Apple, Google, and all of these connected product providers are doing is they're making proprietary operating systems, and then they're loading the operating systems with surveillance and predatory apps to collect the user information so that they can then turn around and exploit that for financial gain. Really, there's nothing you can do about it in terms of where are you going to go.
Right.
AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and Sprint, plus Metro PCS Cricket all have adopted this exploitive connected business model.
Okay.
So that you can't leave one carrier and go to the other because they're all selling the same products that are either supported by the Android OS, the Apple iOS, or the Microsoft operating system. And each one of those operating systems is built on a predatory business model to collect information that can be exploited for profits. And that's basically, I'm sorry to break this to you, but that's basically what's going on. There is nothing private about your use on these, anything you're doing or conducting on these devices other than your voice communications may be protected because that's going over the cellular phone network, but your texting, your emails, your email attachments, your photos, all of that type of activity is being harvested from your phone.
Arg. Yeah, so, I mean, I was afraid that was going to be the answer. You may or may not be aware, I also am a professor of cybersecurity, so mobile devices are an integral part of some of our classroom discussions because they're so prevalent nowadays. And I mean, I was literally afraid that was going to be a response that no, you really don't have any options if you want to be connected in a mobile way. If you want to play in today's digital era, there's no way around it. Is there no legal recourse? Is there nothing on the horizon that could cause them to back off of this predatory OS?
Well, actually, that's part of my advocacy. My corporate attorney said I'm the only person in the world to ever do a full smartphone analysis based on my software background and being in telecommunications for over 30 years. I'm one of the few people in the world that has both network experience and handset experience. Consequently, what I did was I did an analysis of the applications on the phone, and then I did a terms of use analysis to see the legality of this. And then what I wanted to do is then challenge my findings. So that's exactly what I did in 2014. It took me 4 months to do the Samsung smartphone analysis, apps in terms of use. That's basically, if you want to know the reality of when you click on I agree, it would take the average person 4 months to read their cellular phone agreement now. because the total number of legal text came out to over 3,000 pages.
Okay.
And people ask how did the text get that thick? Well, going back to what I said earlier, when you click on I agree, there were 18 multinational companies responsible for the development of the pre-installed apps in my Samsung phone. When I clicked on I agree with T-Mobile, I was accepting the terms of use from all 18 companies. That comprised of the product terms and conditions, the privacy policies, and what are known as end-user licensing agreements
Yes, sir.
per app.
Yeah.
So the phone had 277 apps developed by 18 companies. So I accepted 18 sets of terms of use and 277 individual end-user licensing agreements per app. Each end-user licensing agreement can be anywhere from 1 page to over 13 pages. So if you accumulate all of that legalese, it came out to over 3,000 pages of legalese. And it's all written in a manner to enable these companies to lawfully take your contact information,
Right.
your calendar information. There's all sorts of cybersecurity issues that I uncovered with my research as well that I also escalated to the FCC and the Department of Homeland Security about all this, because it's also incredibly unsecure.
Oh, it's probably the biggest gateway to anything, is through a mobile device that's within range.
Yeah.
Let's call it. I mean, it's just a gaping hole. And yeah, I mean, we get it on the cybersecurity side, but so what you're saying about your apps, let's go back to that for just a minute. And I'm going to break it down for the audience. It sounds, so the more, when you go to a carrier and you get a new phone, the more free stuff they give you, the more data they're gathering, which is then sold to this free stuff vendor, which means, as usual, nothing's free, right?
Exactly.
So you're not paying for it as an end user, but that vendor is paying T-Mobile for the install on your phone, which they then capture the data from.
But actually, you are paying.
Okay.
All right. What sets precedence here is, unlike Facebook or Twitter, when a user subscribes to Facebook or Twitter, they know hopefully they know they're giving up personal information in trade for the service, and they have the free will to make that decision to use the service or not.
Uh-huh.
Same thing with a third-party app like Pokemon Go. A user has the free will to download that app, knowing that game is not free, that app is going to collect their location data, that app is going to track their motion data, that app is going to collect their contacts and other information. And if people aren't aware of that by now, then they really, if they would go to my website, they'll find out real quickly what's going on with all these free apps.
Well, they deserve what they get if they're not aware of it.
Exactly. So, but unlike that situation, when I bought my Samsung Galaxy Note, I had no choice in the matter. I bought that phone with 277 pre-installed apps. Also, the other legal issue that I'm challenging here is the app permissions. The app permissions are not located in my terms of use. So if I were to have read every page of each set of terms of use, the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, and even the end-user licensing agreement, I would not find any of the app permission legalese. And the app permission legalese is what describes the level of access to your personal information. So, for instance, I'll read you a real Android app permission. Now, this app permission contains a product warning. This is a real app permission. This is connected to an app that syncs to your social media pages and actually allows this allows third parties not only to get data off of your cell phone, but this app will actually hack information from other parts of your life. And this is called a syncing app. It's part of a syncing app, and this is the permission. I'll read this to you. allows the app to access and sync social media updates from you and your friends. Be careful when sharing information. This allows the app to read communications between you and your friends on social networks, regardless of confidentiality. Now, that's an app permission I feel should be in your terms and conditions, so you can read that, A, because it's describing that the app can actually hack information from other areas of my life, from other connected technologies that I own and or internet accounts that I have that my phone can speak to. B, there's a warning in here that says be careful when sharing information. That's a product warning.
Yeah.
So what good is an app permission, which is basically stating I'm giving the third party permission if I can't deny the permission, and what good is the product warning if I don't even know the product warning exists? And those are things that I'm challenging right now from a legal perspective.
Good for you. What can the audience do to help?
Well, what people need to do is they need to get educated, and they need to do what I'm doing. What I'm doing is, if you go to my website, you'll see that I challenged T-Mobile in July of 2015. I filed a formal consumer privacy complaint against T-Mobile with the FCC. Now, the FCC, you got to understand, T-Mobile is one of the FCC's best customers. They
Oh,
pay
sure.
the FCC billions of dollars for that spectrum. They don't exactly want to go after their customers, but what I did was I sent the Samsung Galaxy Note analysis to the FCC, and I asked the FCC on my behalf to get T-Mobile. I wanted T-Mobile to be transparent about their data mining business practices. So I filed a complaint with them and then sent them the hard data, my smartphone analysis. Now, the only thing that yielded from T-Mobile, and this is what your audience, what I'm suggesting they do, is that they file complaints with the FCC. But not only that, I filed complaints with T-Mobile, Samsung, Google, AT&T, and so forth regarding what I'm filing complaints on is transparency of their data mining business practices. And through my FCC case, if you go on my website, T-Mobile actually responded with a letter in regards to the FCC. And when I tell you that your smartphones aren't private, don't take my word for it. I'll read to you exactly what T-Mobile told me in that letter. They said, "We too remember a time before smartphones when it was reasonable to conclude that when you activated service with T-Mobile, that only T-Mobile would have access to our personal information. However, with the Samsung Galaxy Note and the iPhone and many other devices, there are indeed a variety of parties that may collect and use information." That quote comes directly from T-Mobile, and that's on. I published the full T-Mobile letter on my website.
Yes, sir.
So
I hope you enjoyed that. That's the first half of the interview. The second half we'll try to have on next week. It's possible we might be broadcasting from a remote site. If we are, then we'll have it on the week following that. So expect to hear more from Mr. Rex Lee. His website is termsmayapply.com. Go out there and do some homework. Bring yourself up to date. And if you try to call any member of the Doc Owen Show, we're no longer available because we're turning in all of our mobile devices.
That's right. We're going to be like Ima's mom.
So,
Back to the flip phone.
If you got even a flip phone, if you got something that you need some information that you want us to have, you're going to have to write it on a piece of paper, wrap it around a rock, and throw it through the window. Don't do that. So anyway, it's a little bit scary. We got 2 local events. If you'll, those of you not in San Antonio will allow me, 60 to 90 seconds to get this out there. One of them is huge. You have heard me talking about a lady who is the WFA. If you don't remember, that stands for World's Foremost Authority on the United States Constitution and the Federalist Papers, and a complete and exact interpretation of what the Founding Fathers meant and how it should be put into practice. Her name is Publius Hulda, Publius Huldah, and she's got a blog out there. I've encouraged you for well over a year now to go read something about Publius. It seems that Publius Hulda will be in Yoakum, Texas, just south of one of my favorite spots in the entire state, Shiner, Texas. And we're going to go over and interview Publius and listen to what she has to say about the Convention of States. It's not very flattering. She thinks the wool is being pulled over our eyes. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. In addition, one day next week, is it next week Thursday night or a week from Thursday night?
It's next Thursday.
It's next Thursday night.
Yes.
There will be a town hall meeting that we may well broadcast here in San Antonio on Sanctuary Cities. And it's being put on down at UTSA. You can go to Town Hall Sanctuary Cities is what the name of it is. You can find it on Facebook. But it's at UTSA downtown next Thursday night. Starts at 7 o'clock. That really is about all the information that I have about it. But there'll be a panel of 2 pros and 2 cons. You know, there's 2 people that are kind of in favor of sanctuary cities and 2 people that we hope are at least not necessarily against them, but against some of the things that they stand for. Let's put it that way. All right. So those are the 2 local events. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about what's going on in the current events in terms of Donald J. Trump, president-elect. First of all, I would like to weigh in on the fact that all of the anti-Trump forces that are absolutely pulling out unbelievable stops. And we're not talking about a bunch of high school kids whining and crying and complaining because their favorite candidate lost the election. We're talking about the heads of major bureaucracies within the federal government. The Department of Homeland Security, the Secretary of Intelligence, the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, and I've forgotten there was one other. There were 4 of them. The Director of National Intelligence. All right. These guys delivered a report, and it was under the guise. That's 2 different spellings of the same thing. The first was G-U-Y-S. The second, G-U-I-S-E. Well, I dawned on me. I hate using the same word the same word twice in the same sentence, so I wanted to distinguish that I was not doing that. Yeah. These 4 guys, under the pretense of delivering a national security report on non-existent Russian hacking of the election, which they still have no evidence for that, and they're not going to have any evidence of that. It's just bull sugar to try to undermine Donald Trump's, presidency before he ever gets started.
That's right.
They supposedly added a 2-page dossier to this report on Russian hacking, and the 2-page dossier purportedly came from a respected former British spy that had done some background checking on Trump and his inner circle and talked about all of the things that they did wrong and promiscuous and yada, yada, yada while they were in Russia to try to shed a very negative light on Trump's Russian relationship. Well, it turns out that, and so now let that sit. And it came out in the national media. It came out on a thing called BuzzFeed, and which is a poor man's version of WikiLeaks that doesn't check anything, and they just, they have an agenda, and so they push crap that suits their agenda, much like the mainstream media, but they're in the alternate media. And so CNN picked it up, and they ran with it, and yada, yada. So all of this jazz is going on in the airwaves about Trump's Russian connections and what a bad boy he was when he was over in Russia, right?
That's right.
And his people. Trump, being the intelligent man that he is, decided to run a sting. and he did such a good job, he didn't even tell his personal, professional, right-hand person, his executive assistant that has been with him for almost 20 years, he didn't even tell her he was having a meeting with the intelligence people because he wanted to prove that the leak to the media was not coming from his camp. It had to be coming from the intelligence community, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't tell a soul that he was having this meeting. Within minutes of the meeting's conclusion, it was in the media that he had the meeting. The leak had to come from the intelligence community, right?
Wow.
Most likely, someone who was at the meeting put in a phone call or a text, said, we're done. Break it open. Mm-hmm. Right? He set him up. The department of, the head of this James Clapper guy called Trump and apologized. That, he was absolutely dumbfounded that the intelligence community would have leaked that information. But it appears that they did. So one guy's already apologized. Now they know what they're dealing with. They are not dealing with somebody that's going to roll over, play dead, right? They gave Trump a hard time because they didn't think he distanced himself enough from his Trump enterprises. He wanted to bring in his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, I think is his name.
Jared Kushner, yeah.
Jared Kushner, to be a senior advisor. Mr. Kushner was a formidable advisor to Trump during his campaign and obviously did a very good job, and Donald wants to keep him around. Can't blame him. He's married to Ivanka Trump, right? The oldest daughter. So Ivanka today had to completely sign off and give away all of her dealings with Trump Enterprises. Any directorship, any board of directors, anything she had to do with Trump Enterprise, she just walked away from it and said, I'm no longer involved. So now my husband can serve with the president-elect. Mm-hmm. They're going to have they're not going to have a very hard time. It's going to be totally impossible for the Washington establishment to box this gentleman and his troops in. Mm-hmm. They are not going to be able to do it. And the sooner they learn that, the better off they will be.
That's right.
Now, the sooner they learn it, the less entertaining for the rest of us it will be. That's why the name of the show is DJT Day -8, which is next Friday. We will have the inauguration. They are still trumpeting, no pun intended, about riots in the streets, and they're going to break it up, and they're going to do this, and they're going to set off bombs, and they're going to total, absolute madness, mayhem is going to go on. And I think they're going to find out that the long arm of the law is going to get pretty short when it comes to protecting Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And these people are going to meet with circumstances that they're not really expecting and have not seen for quite some time. They've been able to get away with their crap. And I don't think it's going to play well in Washington, D.C. on January the 20th.
Yoo-hoo!
I really don't. Which is why the rest of the title of the show was the 7 Days of Christmas. So starting tomorrow, we've got 7 days of gifts that are going to be given to us in terms of turning this country around. I don't know what they are, but I can assure you that they're coming. So pay attention, take advantage of the celebration, build up to January the 20th. We'll get a chance to talk one more time before the event and pray that Mr. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.